We're going to make the front pockets, and the first process is to take your pocket facings and overlock the curved edge. As you can see, I'm using my left hand to swivel the fabric round and control it. Because it's such a small pattern piece, I'm hardly using my right hand at all. Just come to the press, just press out that overlocking so those facings are nice and flat along that edge. Sometimes when you overlock around the curves, it can stretch out a little bit. I've also brought the coin pocket over, so we're going to do the same process on this coin pocket as we did on the back pockets. It's just a smaller size. Press the top down by probably just under 1 centimetre, and again. So we're going to stitch along the top hem of this pocket in the same way as we did with those back pockets. So I'm going to press the sides around on this coin pocket now. Again, that's 1 centimetre. Just watch your fingers when you're pressing these small pieces. Make sure you move your fingers out of the way before you press the steam button. Now we've prepped the pieces, we're ready to put our pocket together. We should have overlocked facings, the pocket bag, the coin pocket and the front of our jeans. So making sure we've got a pair of pockets, we're going to position the facing on top of the pocket bag. One for the right and the left. Now we're going to stitch around the overlocked edge here on both pockets. We're actually going to stitch on top of our overlocking, not too close to the edge, just a couple of millimetres in, but not 1 centimetre in, that would be too far. You might want to consider what colour bobbin thread you have got underneath, yeah, because it's going to be visible on the inside of the garment. If you want it to be tonal to your pocket bag, you'll need to change your bobbin thread to match. And again, you can see I'm using my left hand to swivel this fabric round in the machine and just using my right hand gently as a guide. And for speed, you can see I'm just stitching directly onto my next piece. For this to work, you must butt the pieces up really closely as they go through the machine. You can still back tack as you leave one piece and start on the next piece. If I flip this over, you can see that the thread is matching my pocket bag. I'm going to give this a press now. So you can see the pressing is getting rid of that slight pucker that I had. It's just because of different weights of fabric and putting them together, and especially because we're using such a thick needle. So we're ready to put our coin pocket onto the facing now. Again, if you've got no markings here, you need to go back to your pattern, position it on and use a chalk pencil or some chalk to mark through where your pocket should be. Traditionally, the coin pocket just goes on the right side of the jean, so you'll only need one. We're going to stitch this pocket on in exactly the same way as we stitched our back pockets last week. I'm going to turn and pivot. Sometimes if I'm scared that I'm going to stitch right past my end point here, I'll just stop and do the last 1 or 2 stitches with the hand wheel. Depends how fast or slow your machine is. Again, you're just conscious when you come back up here that you need to just tug that little pocket, the top of your edge of your pocket over to stop that raw edge being visible. And as with the other pocket, if you notice yourself going quite far off and it's going to look uneven, just stop and unpick rather than continue. So that's the coin pocket attached to the pocket facing on the right side only. And you can see on the back, so this will be visible inside your garment. Because I changed the bobbin thread to match my pocket lining, it's now tonal on the inside. Now we need to sew the pocket bags onto our trouser fronts. So this should be, if the right side of our trouser is facing up, the right side of our pocket should be facing it like that. And we're going to stitch around this curve here. I flipped it over. And then we've got a centimetre seam allowance on this as well. When you're stitching around the curve of this pocket, try not to pull it too much like that. You might feel like you naturally want to do that, or it's easier, but it actually just stretches the pocket opening out a little bit. So try and sew it as if you're keeping the integrity of the curve. Yeah? Our second one here. Now we're going to snip in through both layers of our seam allowance. Just make these snips about just over a centimetre apart and quite close to your stitch line. Yeah, so I'm about 3 or 4 millimetres away from that stitch line. Then the pocket bag will come round and sit nice and flat. Okay, I'm going to go and press this now. So when we're pressing the pocket round, the lining wants to come towards the inside, and you just want to roll it round a little bit like that. So when you press it, it's never going to be visible on the right side. If you're having trouble bringing this to the inside and pressing it, and it doesn't want to lie flat for you, you might not have done enough snips. So just double check. If you snip too far, it ends up looking like a 50p piece, so it's not nice, round, smooth curve. So it is important how you do those snips. Yeah. So we can top stitch the edge of our pocket now. I'm going to do 2 rows of stitching on the edge of my pocket mouth, one on the edge, and the second row where the edge of my foot sits next to the first row of stitching, as is traditional. So all we need to do now is to close the bottom of our pocket over. This is what it's going to look like when it's completed. But what we actually need to do is give ourselves a little notch at the half point, at the position where the fold is here. And then really a nice way to do it is to French seam it. So if we fold it back on itself, so the wrong sides of our pocket bag are together, and the facing is facing outwards. We're going to just stitch 5 millimeters down here and across the bottom of our pocket. In a French seam, we just need to do 5 mil, 6 mil. So if the edge of your fabric almost just hits the middle of this right toe, that should be about right. It's on a particularly stretchy bit of fabric, that side piece that I'm stitching here, so just be aware not to stretch it out when you're stitching. Okay, turn and pivot and across the bottom of our pocket. We can now trim off any raw edges there. Don't trim too much, it's only a tiny seam allowance. brought this to the press now, so I'm just going to get it flatter, that seam. And then we're going to turn this pocket bag through to the inside. If you get that corner out, just use your fingers to roll it out, like that. Sometimes I use a pin. So roll the seam towards the edge. This fabric's quite bouncy, yours might, if it's 100% cotton, it'll be easier. Depends what you've chosen. So if I get that nice and flat, then when I do my second row of stitching, it's going to be nice and easy. So just going to stitch along the bottom of my pocket bag and up the side here. 6 or 7 millimeters. So if you can just see your fabric poking out from the side of your foot, that's about right. Sometimes when I do pocket bags, if I've been top stitching, I'll have had my stitch on quite a long stitch, so maybe a 4. So because we sometimes need a bit more strength in a pocket bag, I might reduce the stitch size to maybe back down to 3. The final thing to do on the pockets is just secure the top, across the top and down the sides to where your pocket bag hits your side seam, just to hold the pocket in place for the next operation. Just make this stitch less than 1 centimetre so it's not going to be visible later on.